5.il. It's in the proceedings of the ACM CCS 18, so you can find it there or in the archive. So this paper is about incentives in the Bitcoin network or any proof of work blockchain system in a sense. And we show that the incentives are a bit misaligned. Let's dive in and I'll show you. I'll start with some background. So, the point in these blockchain cryptocurrencies is to actually facilitate transactions among the users of the system. And other types of users, called miners, group these transactions in blocks and append them to the blockchain, which is essentially a ledger for all past verified transactions. To append blocks to the blockchain, miners are required to solve a proof of work puzzle. It's actually a puzzle that, for example, in Bitcoin, a miner would have to find a specific value such that some condition that is defined in the protocol, is met. So essentially, the miner groups this, the transactions that he wanted to include in the block, and the header of the previous block, and this value that he sought. And if this combination matches some value, then this is a valid block. To create blocks, miners actually have to expend a lot of resources. This is in the form of either mining equipment, usually used by specific hardware, and also electricity. Every now and then there's a paper saying that the energy consumption of Bitcoin is such that Denmark, etc. So it's a lot of money invested in mining. There's also this notion of the difficulty parameter, which was mentioned in the previous talk, which states how difficult it is to create a valid block and to append it to the blockchain. This is used to fix the rate of which new blocks are appended to the system in Bitcoin once every 10 minutes. The difficulty is a function of how many miners are actually participating in the system. So if you have more miners, it will become more difficult to append new blocks, still keeping the rate at once per 10 minutes low. We also have the longest chain rule, which states that in the case of conflicting chains, honest miners should pick the longest chain. And actually, it shouldn't be called the longest chain rule, it should be called the more work chain rule. So basically, choose the chain that has more work in it. And that chain is also considered to be more safer. It's less likely to be discarded, like was mentioned in the first talk today. So, what do miners get for expending so many resources on creating these blocks? They're compensated by the currency of the system. So, these incentives come from two sources. The first is the minting of new currency, the new bitcoins that created with each new block, and the other is fees. That the users who create the transactions also pay fees to the miners that include them in blocks. Both of these go to the miner that found the block, and that's how it gets paid for its efforts. So let's consider the pending transactions. In Bitcoin, it's called the mempool. All unconfirmed transactions that are now miners want to pick from to insert to the blockchain. And these transactions offer different fees. And let's say in this example, you can only pick 3. So which transactions would you pick? The one that offers the highest fees, right? So in this example, these 3. So I'm going to show you how the mining process works in a sense. This is what happens currently today in Bitcoin. So let's say block 94 was found, and now I'm a miner, and I want to create a new block. So I look at how much coins are going to be created. In this example, 4 coins. Over here, 5 coins over here. And let's say currently the mempool is empty. There are no fees available for me, and I expect my cost to be about 4 coins in electricity. Alright, I already paid for the mining equipment, and now I estimate my expenses in extra 4 coins for the electricity. So some time passes, and I haven't found a block. Well, I'm mining obviously because my expected profit is greater than 0 over there. So I started mining, and some time had passed, and I haven't found a block. But that's okay because now more transactions were introduced to the system, and now they actually offer some fees for me. So I recalculate what block I'm trying to mine, and now my expected profit is actually 2. And so I keep on mining. Well, I adjust the block I'm trying to mine, and I keep on mining. And some more time passed, still haven't found my block. And more fees have been introduced to the system, so I recalculate my block, etc., until at some point I find my block and I get the reward. That's great. So that's what happens today. Essentially, immediately after a block was found, all the miners start mining for the next block. And this happens because the minting, the amount of money created and available at the very first second available for mining, is actually the substantial part of the reward. So I'm gonna jump to our work, which we call recovery. The first thing we ask ourselves is how fees accumulate over time in the mempool. So this is a measurement we had in like last year. I admit the fees were relatively high that time. And what we see here on the vertical on the x-axis is the time since the finding of the last block. And the y-axis is how many bitcoins are available for the best 1 megabyte block we can create from the available transactions. And there are two things to learn from this graph. One is that these fees actually grow in somewhat linear manner. And the second is that even when a block was found, there are still some available fees left, meaning we don't clear all the transactions from the mempool, and there are fees available immediately for our next block. The thing about fees is that they're about to become way more dominant, and that's for two reasons. The first is that in Bitcoin specifically, the amount of coins created with each block increases over time. So at the beginning it was 50 new Bitcoins with each block, then it went to 25, now it's 12 and a half, and it's gonna happen itself every 4 years. So fees are supposed to take over that and become a more dominant part of the incentive scheme. The second thing is that as the currencies become more popular, you actually have more demand for transactions. So people actually offer more fees to get their transactions included. I'm not sure if you monitor the Ethereum network at the time of CryptoKitties, that was December 17, I think. You had to pay a lot of money to get your transactions included, only because there was such a high demand. And I think that we have a talk tomorrow about that by Sunya, which is looking at this wall. Never mind. So let's revisit our mining scenario. This time with dominant fees. So at this time, the only difference from the previous scenario is that in this setting, the available coins at the get-go, the available coins that are minted, is just 1. My expenses are the same, still expecting to cost me 4 coins. Therefore, my expected profit is negative. And in this scenario, it's not profitable for me to mine. So what would I do? I'll just wait, right? I'll wait until enough fees have accumulated. So I'll wait some time. And some transactions are introduced to the system, offering fees, but still that's not enough, right? That's not positive. So I still wait. And some more time has passed, and more fees have been introduced. And now it suddenly becomes profitable for me to mine. So I start mining, and eventually I find a block. Please notice that in both of these scenarios, this one and the one I showed you before, I still get 7 coins, right? And my expected costs are still 4. The only difference is when are the coins available for me. And also notice that the mining time is the same, still the same 10 minutes. This is due to the difficulty adjustment mechanism that ensures me that block is found every 10 minutes. The only difference is that in this period, I'm not mining. So this is called mining gaps, and this was actually introduced by a paper by Custom et al. In CCS 16. But their model was a bit lacking in my opinion. It actually had no minting at all, which is bound to happen in about 100 days from now. And they also considered unbounded blocks, meaning each new block would take all the available transactions from the mempool and just take all the transactions and put them in a block, which we saw is not the case in Bitcoin. And this was actually the first paper I read in my PhD. So the question arises is, if we're here and in 100 years, under the assumption of unbounded blocks, we're going to get these mining gaps, when do they start? And this is what we ask ourselves in this paper. When do they start, and what are the implications? And a little spoiler alert, it's a lot closer on this side. So I'm going to show you what we did. We start by a model of cryptocurrencies that includes both the incentives, the minting and fees, and the expenses, the Capital expenses, you buy mining equipment, doesn't matter if you mine or not, you still pay for that. And electricity, which you only pay if you actually mine. And we define a game. This is a game theory work. We have players, which are the miners, and we have strategies, which are when to mine, when not to mine. And utility function is just the expected reward. So we have an analysis for that, and we also have simulations, and we discuss the implications. I'm going to talk you through how we calculate the expected profit, the utility function. So, we have all these considerations that affect the expected profit of a miner. His expenses, his income, the strategy, and the behavior of other players that affects his revenue through the difficulty mechanism. So how we calculate it? First, we find the probability distribution function of finding block times. Okay, we actually define a random variable for each mining ring in the system, and then the block finding time is the minimum of all those variables. Then we use conditional expected profit, assuming we know the block finding time. This gives us the conditional expected profit of the miner. And then using the law of total expectation, or it's called sometimes the smoothing term, we get the expected profit. The thing with miners is that we expect them to be rational, meaning they want to optimize their profit. So we actually get the gap gain, where miners change their mining times to optimize their profit. And we run this simulation and find the equilibrium point, and we get it. So basically we have this point where all the miners find when they want to start mining, and this is an equilibrium. I'm going to show you this some of the results, some of those equilibrium points. But first I need to define this metric we call EBRR, which basically means the ratio of expected reward at the start of mining minus the expected accumulated reward. But what you should know is that the lower the EBRR is, the more fees, the dominant fees are. Okay, so low values, dominant fees. This is one of the experiments we did. In this setting, we have EBRR of 1. We have 8 miners or 8 players in the system, and we get the gap ratio is about 0.35. That means that for all of this time, miners won't be mining, and this is the rest of the mining period. Okay, so in Bitcoin that would be about 3 and something minutes of waiting, and then continued mining for about 6 and some minutes. We repeat this experiment for different number of players. Okay, so in this setting, 2 players. This setting, 64 players. And also for different EBRR values. So this is for 0, meaning where the fees are really dominant, and this is for 2.5, fees are not so dominant. And I want to remind you that actually the point where to be is lower in this graph. That means that there is more mining being in the system. And that means the system is more secure. I remind you of the longest chain rule, the more work rule. We want as much work as possible invested in the system, and that happens when we are low in this graph. We also show the value of this gap gain, how much you gain by actually participating and optimizing your starting point. This is in this graph. It looks pretty similar, but please notice that the less players are in the system, they actually gain more money. So if there were 8 players, they'd be getting this value. But if they decide to collude and form coalitions, form 4 coalitions, they actually get more. And this is true for any EBRR value. Okay? That means that you're actually incentivizing the participants to form coalitions, thus breaking the decentralized nature of the system. Basically, 2 small miners get X coins. They can join forces to become a large miner and get 2x plus y when y is greater than 0. We took our model and threw the Bitcoin parameters into it for a test case. Basically, we fixed everything as we measured it back in February 18. And we just considered the halving rate of the minting reward. And by doing so, we got that we get about 10% gap in 10 years obviously assuming everything stays the same and that miners are rational and will optimize according to our model. So, to conclude, in this work, model and analysis of rational mining behavior in the presence of dominant fees. We discuss mining gaps, which makes the system less resilient to 51% attacks. This is more work chain work. And the centralization system. We discuss the implications, the Bitcoin test case, and we also urge you to consider this if you're designing your new future system. I'll remind you, this work is available in the CCS 18 proceedings. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you also for being, leaving a little gap.
Yeah.
This is the real gap game. So back 5 minutes on track. Any questions? Ricardo.
Yes, so you need to estimate the cost of these strategies, right? It's pretty tricky because it's not stable. If you look over time, you must estimate the power cost.
Yeah, so what we did
It's country dependent and it's,
Yeah, what we did to estimate that, we just Googled the cost of electricity in several countries, the average, and the cost of mining the top S9 mining rig at the time. I know this is the common thing to do. There is another work by Joseph No from NYU that pretty much did the same thing, called why buy when you can rent. So he also had this estimation of mining costs. And if you have a better idea how to do that, please, I'd be happy to know when you apply that.
No, what I was explaining before when you have a strategy with the same cost, you just
Yeah, of course.
But there here you stop mining, so the cost is not the same.
Yes, of course.